OpenAI is apparently racing to launch a new AI system, which we've talked about before, codenamed Strawberry, according to the information, possibly as soon as this fall. So, Strawberry is kind of previously known as the Q Star project or as elements of it that we've talked about in the past couple of years. It basically is representing a major leap forward in problem solving abilities, particularly in math and programming. So, according to sources involved in the project interviewed by the information, OpenAI researchers are aiming to integrate Strawberry into a chatbot, possibly within ChatGPT, and possibly very, very soon. One source estimates it could be as early as this fall. Now, Strawberry is pretty unique, reportedly, in a couple of different ways. So, first, it can reportedly solve math problems it has not seen before, which is something that today's AI tools can't do. And we'll talk a bit about why that's important. Second, when it is given additional time to think through problems, it can also better perform more subjective tasks. So, some of the examples given by the information include, say, answering questions about a product marketing strategy. OpenAI employees also demonstrated that Strawberry can solve a complex word puzzle like the New York Times' Connections game. Now, interestingly, Strawberry also appears essential to OpenAI's upcoming new flagship model, which is codenamed Orion. The information reports from a source that OpenAI is using a bigger version of Strawberry to generate synthetic training data for Orion. So, if this is true and if it works as intended, it basically means OpenAI could overcome these limitations that right now are inherent in AI training, this need to find more and higher quality real world data to feed models so they can become smarter. So, Paul, there's been just an upswing in talk and rumors about Strawberry recently. How seriously are you taking this most recent report and just generally the commentary around the capabilities and potential release date of Strawberry?
Yeah, when we first started talking about it, it was a lot of rumors, but I think it was Reuters that had the article. So back in episode 106, we kind of went a little deeper on this topic and explained what the Reuters article said about it. If you listen to that episode or want to go back and listen to it, we talked about maybe the origin of the code name being intended to troll Elon Musk for
Hmm.
a 2017 Vanity Fair interview where he talked about, the self-improving AI, basically being like if the quote was, let's say you create a self-improving AI to pick strawberries and it gets better and better at picking strawberries and picks more and more. And it's self-improving. So all it really wants to do is pick strawberries. So then it would have all the world be strawberry fields forever, and there'd be no room for human beings. So that was Elon Musk in 2017 talking about the dangers of AI.
Hmm.
And so, the theory was that, maybe OpenAI was having some fun at Elon Musk's expense with the strawberry code name. But the basic premise back in episode 106 is, as you had kind of mentioned, it's all about reasoning capabilities and improvement in reasoning capabilities. The project's goal in the Reuters article was said to enable AI to plan ahead and navigate the internet autonomously to perform what OpenAI calls deep research. Um, but it's basically tightly guarded. Now, the reason it's significant is if we go back again in episode 106, we talked about the stages of AI from OpenAI. So these are the levels 1 through 5. Level 1 being chatbots with conversational languages, where we are today. Level
Hmm.
2 is reasoners, human level problem solving. So that's what, in theory, Strawberry takes us to. That then enables level 3, which is agents. So we talk a lot about AI agents. That's systems that can take actions, which leads to innovators at level 4, AI that can aid in innovation. And then level 5 is organizations. So this is a step toward the, AGI that OpenAI pursues. The article had some new information, like I hadn't heard about the government demos, which is going to become relevant in a
Mhm.
minute when we're talking about laws and regulations. And then it talked about Ilya and what Ilya Sutskever saw. So we've talked again. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, you've heard us talk about Ilya quite a bit. One of the co-founders of OpenAI left to form his own AI lab not too long ago, earlier this year. And so in May of 2023, Ilya and I think it's about 7 or 8 other researchers at OpenAI published an article called Improving Mathematical Reasoning with Process Supervision. And so I think this becomes very important. And so And I'll step back for a second and explain why this matters. They also at that time published a research paper called Let's Verify Step by Step. And we'll put the links to both this article and that research paper in the show notes. But I think this is probably going to end up being the early, like OpenAI often publishes things far in advance before they release the things. And I think this paper is probably the blueprint to Strawberry if we go
Hmm.
back and look at it. So the basic premise here is when you're training these models, they use something called reinforcement learning. So basically, they train the model, and then the model is either taught to do something by giving it a reward, like a goal. So if you think about, we talked about AlphaGo when Google DeepMind, trained AlphaGo to win at the game of Go. The reward function is winning, like it's earning points or something. That's why they often train in game systems because in games there's a definitive endpoint. There's a reward function that the AI is seeking to achieve. But when you're building these generative AI models, there is no perfect outcome per se. There's no points to be earned, there's no game to win at the end. So you have to develop a way to reward the model through this reinforcement learning in the process. And so in the when you're doing, like, say you're writing an article, how do you know if it's written the article well? Well, right now they use this reinforcement learning through human feedback where a human looks at output A and output B and says output B is better. Like that's the reward function basically is the human saying this is a better option, then it learns to do it like that. So, to give these models, though, what we call system two thinking, the ability to reason over time, to go through 10, 20, 50 steps in a process, to plan, to make decisions, they have to know how each step in the process perform. And so the article, this Let's Verify Step by Step research paper, what it said is, and I'll quote, we've trained a model to achieve a new state of the art in mathematical problem solving. And this is the real key point by rewarding each correct step of reasoning, what they were calling process supervision, instead of simply rewarding the correct final answer, which they call outcome supervision. So what it does is it is able to evaluate itself step by step and to know if that step is accurate. So if we have to solve a problem that requires 10 or 15 steps, take us, hard math problem. It can't just know it got the right answer. You can't just go to the outcome supervision side. What we want to do is know that it took the right step in the process each time. And so if you go back a few episodes ago, we talked about how AI agents aren't reliable yet because they may only get something right like 95% of the time. So to get to that level 3 from that we just talked about with OpenAI, the AI agent level, we have to remove hallucinations and errors. How do you remove hallucinations and errors? You make sure every step of the process is done correctly. How do you do that? By giving the model the ability to do this process supervision. So back in May of 2023, I think OpenAI laid out for us exactly what Strawberry was going to be. It was a
Hmm.
way to not only enable these models to do reasoning and planning and make decisions and eventually take actions, but it was actually the process of the model evaluating each step along the way as having a reward function to doing the step correctly. And so that's where I think we're going to hear a lot more conversation going. And the information article did talk about this idea. It said Strawberry has its roots in research. It was started years ago by Ilya, then OpenAI's chief scientist. He recently left, started competing lab. Before he left, OpenAI researchers Yakov and Sisman built on Setskava's work by developing a new math solving model, QStar, alarming researchers focusing on AI safety. Because again, once these models can do this, once they can remove the error rates or dramatically reduce the error rates, they can remove the hallucinations, and they can give themselves the rewards along the way. Now they develop the ability to improve themselves because now they can find. So if you take a 10-step process and it finds an error in step 3, and it can go back and fix the error. So self correcting AI, that's when we get into a situation where these things can take off pretty quickly in their capabilities and their impact on jobs and businesses and all that stuff. And that's why we talk a lot about not where models are today, but where they're going. And you can follow the path of this research from, Google, from OpenAI, from Anthropic. Like you can see where this stuff is going. You just have to read the research papers they've published. and you look at the capabilities within those papers that aren't here yet, but you can make an assumption 1 to 2 models out, they're going to be there. And this is the whole premise of my opening talk at Macon. It's like the
Mm.
road to AGI. Like, it's laid out before us. We can look at the research and we know what they're working on. And if you just make some assumptions about those things becoming true, then we have a general idea of what the near term future looks like.
Yeah, that's a really important point. It seems every time we talk about AGI, we always want to kind of qualify like, oh man, this sounds a little out there, but this is the base principle they're assuming could happen at some point when they make these arguments. And now when you layer on top of that, oh my gosh, we're actually hearing reports that they're starting to do something related to it. Then you have to start completely reframing this as
Right.
not exactly science fiction, but possibly the near future.
Yeah, and I think one of the other, key points the information article made is that, and we've talked about this idea on the show before, like the GPT-4 model we all got in spring of 23 is not GPT-4 full. Like, we got the scaled down version, the safe quote unquote version of that model. And they said in this article, Strawberry, when it comes out, if it comes out in ChatGPT, like if it's part of the chatbot, they said the
Mm,
chatbot version is a smaller, simplified version of the original Strawberry model. It seeks to maintain the same level of performance as the bigger model while being easier and less costly to operate. They give us the safer versions of things. So whatever we end up getting access to, after the government demos and after they've kind of made it as safe as they can, it's not going to be the full version. We talked about this with advanced voice mode. Like,
mm.
when we get that in ChatGPT, we're not going to have the full scaled version of it. Maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 60%. Like, who knows? But these things are more powerful than what we get access to.